both an ally and a threat in the media businesses.
Sure.
But thinking of it as a potential ally is obviously a more potentially valuable strategy. And so, you know, whether it's the delivery of content on an iPad, which after all, people A are paying for, and B is a much lower delivery cost than on paper and ink, or whether it's partnering with people like Google using that concept of frenemy that's out there now. But I think part of it is the fact that at the beginning when Mark was trying to build the company, or when I took over Playboy and the company was in trouble, sometimes crisis is actually a great friend if you're trying to promote change.
Sure.
The risk, I think, is that companies that are doing well don't embrace change because they're comfortable. So I think someone like Netflix, which redefined how to rent a DVD by simply delivering them through the mail, when it was doing extremely well, embraced the internet as a disruptive technology, and now more than 20% of their customers are video streaming the content instead of getting the DVD in the little red envelope. And that notion that you're never doing so well that you shouldn't be looking around the corner to say, what's going to provoke change, whether it's an opportunity or a threat, and usually it can be both, and what am I going to do about it, I think is an important way to manage.
Let me ask you about something completely different here. I'm being a woman CEO. Because when you became CEO,
It was pretty rare.
it was just about unheard of.
Yeah,
And it's not exactly common now, although it's much more so.
right.
But at the time, it was it was almost unheard of. As you think about the experience, was it possibly an advantage? Was it a disadvantage? What'd you learn?
I think in my case it actually was more of an advantage. On one level, people were just curious, you know. Hugh Hefner's daughter, you know, what is she like? She's running Playboy. And I used that curiosity to open doors, to get to see, you know, everybody from Leonard Lauder to get Lauder into the magazine, to Warren Buffett to work on a recapitalization plan. So that helped. At the same time, I think that I've always tried to find the balance between the traditionally, you know, stereotypical male qualities of authority and, you know, tough-mindedness and goal orientation with the traditionally stereotypical female qualities of collaboration and nurturing. And I think sometimes it's easier actually for women to do that than it is for men.
Right.
And I think the last thing is it would have been harder just to keep it in the family context for my brother, because I think there's a more competitive relationship between fathers and sons than fathers and daughters.
Good point. Good point. And I mean, there is an argument that actually in the present business environment and what we're going to see going forward, women CEOs may have an advantage generally because they handle those things that you were just talking about a little better. Just going in.
On average, I always hate those stereotypes
I
because
hate
I
them
know,
too.
you know,
But
but yes,
if you look at 1,000
in the norm, yes, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think the leadership model has changed more radically than any business model.
Right.
And the old command and control leadership model will fail for sure.
Right.
And so whether your description of men and women, how they're wired, I think if you're not somebody that's willing to give away the power and let people really flourish and think and create an environment where people think rather than people do, I don't think you're going to be successful
And
very
you're
long.
okay being challenged.
And you're okay, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's really true.
Well, so let me ask you a similar question, which is, how are you wired? How do you think you're wired?
Well, I don't know. That takes longer than we have here, I think. I think I've evolved with the job because I was a hard-charging sales guy, and the reason that I got...
important point, by the way, that I didn't mention, but
yes.
Sales that's what you came up through.
Yes,
that's what
I'm
you
still
did.
selling stuff
well,
too,
I can
Geoff,
tell. Yeah,
by
I
the
know.
way. But I was a hard-charging sales guy, and in 1999, when nobody else wanted to be the president and CEO of TaylorMade, they gave it to the sales guy. But what I've learned very quickly is that you have no power as a CEO anymore. And I think if you think you have power, you're going to fail. You have influence, You have the ability to create an environment where you can attract great people, like Christie said. More importantly, create an environment where people take responsibility for creating a new and better future for the company. But that isn't through power. That's through influence or intelligence, giving up authority.
Right.
We call it in our company distributing the leadership. We push the leadership responsibility down as low as we can in the organization. It sounds great, doesn't work as well as it sounds, but that's what we try to do.
Yep.
So the way I'm wired no longer works for the job that I have. So I've had to completely evolve how I behave at work every day.
Yeah. It's a great point that
Yeah.
you better grow even after you get
Yeah.
the big job.
It's more of a learning environment in the world today than ever before, because the learning, it's nothing lasts very long.
Look at the rate of change
Right.
of
Right.
everything, demographically, technologically, culturally.
Yep. It's time for us to go to questions that have come into us from people who are viewing the webcast. So let's see what we've got right in front of us here. First of all, this is from Meg. And it's a question for me. Okay. Geoff, your recent Fortune piece on who is to blame for the BP oil spill was outstanding. Thank you, Meg. You're obviously a very perceptive person. Why didn't BP learn from its previous safety issues prior to the Deepwater Horizon? You know, it's what we were talking about, I think, in its culture. It turns out there was a long history of safety problems in the company, and they had a lot of intelligence, a lot of information on them, and it seems that they didn't learn all the lessons that they should have. Changing the culture is one of the hardest things to do, and it's funny because I've spoken to CEOs for decades, and I can remember a time when talking about the culture was a little too soft and squishy. You know, it's not what real CEOs...
Let's talk about the numbers.
Let's talk about the numbers.
Right.
And that has changed to the point where now they all understand that the culture is incredibly important. Changing it can be done. It takes time, and it's hard, and it's got to start at the top. And I think that's what, so far, they weren't able to do at BP.
It'd also be interesting. I didn't get an MBA because I didn't actually expect to go into the family business, although I tried to get an MBWA, sort of the management by walking around. But it'd be interesting to go look at the curriculum of business schools and see whether they've kept up with the point you've just made, or are they really still just teaching the numbers and the theory? Are they really trying to teach the human element?
Right.
Because they didn't used to.
They didn't used to, and that's the game.
Yeah.
Next question. This is from Kelly. In today's challenging economy, do you think companies are having a difficult time staying true to their brand and message? Well, it's a good question, and I don't know who it's for, but you can both talk about it.
I'll take it.
Okay, because well,
I'll take the beginning.
Yeah,
she likes to finish them off.
Okay, but it's a good point. In tough times, there's got to be a temptation to go off-brand message and try to accommodate it to the current environment.
I think it's the number one reason companies rise, and then they get to a point they don't see any more growth with their current strategy, so they think that their brand has more width, and they start to take their messaging and their products and their distribution and their associations outside of where they should be, and then they get there and the brand stands for nothing. And it's what happened to our company in the 90s. And to your point about we were in a crisis, and it was actually quite easy to fix because it didn't stand for anything. And as soon as we brought the brand back to the core consumer that liked the brand advocate, they all signed up for buying our products again. And I think as companies struggle, what they do is rather than refocus on what they can do and be number one at something or win at something, they start to branch out. And that's when real trouble comes.
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. I think the problem of being diffuse is a very good one. But I think the question also relates to what we were talking about when we were talking about how do you avoid the temptation to make the wrong cuts. So in a world in which, as the President of the United States would be the first to say, you can't control what everybody else is saying about you. If you cut your marketing budget, if you pull back on your communication, whether it's to your employees or to your clients or to your business partners, then you've lost the chance to at least get your message out there consistently. And so I think that making sure you don't do that can be a really helpful way of countering the noise that's out there in a difficult time.
Yep. Here's a question for Mark. This comes from Harry. He says, Mark, last year, Y.E. Yang defeated Tiger Woods at the PGA tournament. Upon winning the tournament, he lifted his tailor-made bag over his head in an obvious tribute and show appreciation to his sponsor. That would be your company. Just how important are the relationships you have with the touring pros?
Well, Harry, wherever you are out there, it's everything to us. We are an aspirational brand, and the only way that you're going to get people that want to play your products or represent your brand is to have the best players in the world use those products. So everything to us is what players. So we have Sergio Garcia, Retief Goosen, Natalie Gulbis, Paula Kramer, who just won the Ladies U.S. Open. So who we associate with really is key to our brand and the fact that people want to buy it. So we spend more of our marketing dollars on athletes that represent our brands than we do anything else.
I would just add one thought, though, because what Mark is describing is the perfect marriage of a spokesperson who is an authentic endorser of a product. And there's a lot of money spent getting celebrities or prominent people to be in ads, wear product, be at events, where the connection is very tangential. And I don't think that that's necessarily all that effective, and I actually think it can backfire. Of course it can backfire if the person misbehaves, but even short of that, I think it makes the customer kind of wonder, well, why would that person be involved in that? And I bet they're just getting paid for it, and it really harms the credibility of the brand.
Great point.
Yeah.
Here's a question. This is from